I'm new, but I'm learning, all right? Ladies and gentlemen, now it's Too Late with Alan Mosley.
No. Everybody shut up. Everybody shut up. No.
I'm excited.
No. You don't applaud failure. No. I don't know what that was.
Woo!
How many episodes have we done? Because it was like October, like third week of October was a year. So
Oh yeah.
So like 56, 57 episodes, I guess. Something like that.
It's gotta be, yeah. It's gotta be up
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, let's all just bring it back in, everybody. All right. Anyway, guys, welcome back for another episode of It's Too Late. I am your host, Alan Mosley, joined as always by a producer.
Producer, yes.
By certainly a producer of Late Night. It's Dave Wilimowski. Dave! How are you doing, buddy?
Oh, wow. Oh, that's too much. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, it certainly is too much.
Well, now I'm a little rattled, but excited to do the show. I think I set the tone, so it's going to be a lot of fun. We're starting the holiday season. Got my Christmas tie.
Oh, I like that.
So, yeah. How are you doing?
I think you just do these things to feel alive. You know?
Yeah, it's like cutting myself.
Let me ask you this. Do you ever have that feeling sometimes like you're outside of yourself, where you're just sort of in, like whatever it is you're doing, you're just sort of in autopilot, and if you actually think about what you're doing, you can't do it. And you're like, oh, I better just not think about it. I better just let my instincts, Do you ever do that?
Yeah, I think that's what I'm doing now.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
That's a good description.
It's funny. I actually had this whole bit written down where I was going to talk about, have you ever been outside of yourself and you're just in autopilot? And my joke was going to be that I couldn't remember what suit I wore when I did the interview.
Oh.
Because this show is live. Yeah. Like, we're here right now. Like, hi, Celeste. Hi, Mary. Hi, Ryan and Chad. See, this is live.
Yeah, but that's why we have continuity.
Exactly. The interviews, you see, is also live, but I have to make sure I'm wearing the same suit so that people will believe me when I say the whole show is live. And so when I was getting ready for the show tonight, I literally just stopped in the middle of my room, like with my shirt half on and my tie, and I just said, oh my God, what suit was I wearing yesterday? And I actually had to come in here and check the tape to see what suit I was wearing. And I was like, oh, navy pinstripe. So I go back in my room and I'm like, the navy pinstripe is literally just sitting there hanging on my door frame. Like, of course that was the suit I'm wearing. I left it out.
Yeah. I was thinking that.
Yeah. But now the bit has turned into you, not me.
See?
Yeah.
I stole that from you.
Something I want to talk about really quick is we've sort of branded the show here. We do a late night show, and recently I've been advertising the show as the best late night show in America, not hosted by a communist.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
Every now and then I'll get somebody that'll leave some snarky little reply that'll be, well, that's awfully haughty of you to think that you know better than all the people on TV about what good late night is. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. Let's be fair and give TV late night a fair shake. Let's check in to see how late night's doing.
The vaccine. When we poke ya, well, we know you're gonna be safe from COVID infecting you. When you go out, yeah, I know you're gonna hug and not worry, it might kill you.
When's this stop?
Oh, it's not over.
Oh.
If I have to watch this, you have to watch it.
Wow. Feels so much better about how the show started.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, this is the best late night show in America, not hosted by a communist. Oh my God, let me tell you some exciting news. So, Dave, you know that my favorite cereal in the whole wide world is what?
Oh, the banana Cheerios.
That's right. Looking at the notes, you son of a bitch. It's banana
No.
nut Cheerios. And
I knew that. I just wanted to be sure.
I'm really upset because banana nut Cheerios apparently is a seasonal flavor. I first had it right around the start of the whole like pandemic season. It was 2020. Everybody's like getting ready to lock down, but you know how like the grocery stores, like the big box stores are still open when everybody else is closed down. And so people are just rushing to Publix and Kroger's and whatever to get their groceries before they're going into lockdown. And I go and I'm like, banana nut Cheerios. I'll give those a shot. So I buy a box, and it's the greatest damn cereal I've ever had in my life. It's you know, like take a look at the picture right here. It's the typical Cheerio with like that banana puree flavor, but it tastes a bit more like real banana than like your artificial banana, you know. But it's also got a hint of cinnamon mixed in. Oh, it's the best cereal. And of course, as soon as I find my favorite cereal, what do? They take it off the damn shelves. And so me, back in March of this year, I actually wrote to General Mills. I wrote them a letter that said, "Bring back banana nut Cheerios, you cowards. Warm regards, Alan Mosley." And they actually wrote me back. Take a look at the email right here. So this is where they wrote me back to say, you know, thank you for taking time to contact Cheerios. It depends on how much customers like it and the demand. So they actually say that they're going to bring it back in the winter. But that was back in March, and it was like, well, what season do they mean when they say they're going to bring it back? And so now here we are, fast forward to the end of this year. Winter is approaching. And they've been through a whole bunch of new flavors. They've got like honey vanilla and a bunch of other bullshit. They've got strawberry banana, which that's not banana nut.
It's close.
It's not. No. It's bullshit. That's what that is. And so I thought I would tweet about it. So I tweeted this out right here. Tweeted at Cheerios, where I said, quote, "I finished my Thanksgiving dinner of Honey Nut Cheerios, but they weren't banana nut because General Mills doesn't want me to have a happy holiday."
Wow.
I you know,
Yeah.
for direct, pointed, you know, I'm trying to get their attention. And I'll be damned, Cheerios wrote me back again. So Cheerios actually responded right here. Take a look at this. They said, yeah, take your time, Dave. Jesus Christ, Dave. "We'll let the rest of our team know that you'd like to see Banana Nut Cheerios again. Thanks for reaching out." To which, of course, I replied, "Oh, yes, you let those cowards in the top brass know the truth. Strawberry banana isn't good enough. We need banana nut."
I like they responded. That's awesome.
So the moral of the story is that I know that in our community, there's a lot of people who are into activism and politics, and and even though sometimes we don't agree on what the right thing to do is, I know that they're trying to make the world a better place. Let it not be said that I wasn't on the front lines.
You were. You're an activist.
I am. Bring back banana nut Cheerios, you cowards. All right. Oh my God. In movie news, did you hear about the new Super Mario Brothers movie, Dave?
I've been hearing about it for, I feel like years.
Well, it's getting ready to come out now. They released this awesome new trailer, but it actually isn't getting rave reviews from everybody. Take a look at this. So the Super Mario Brothers movie, they've got a lot of criticism about the casting of the film.
Oh.
Particularly, many fans have been vocal about being unimpressed with Chris Pratt's take on the title character of Mario, followed by the choice of Anna Taylor-Joy for Princess Peach. You just can't escape her, can you, Dave?
No.
I know, all of a sudden you're like, maybe I do like Super Mario Brothers.
I don't know. I think I just like that character.
Gross.
That one in, Queen's Gambit, yeah.
Gross. Anyway, You know what? I'm going to be honest with you. I watched the trailer, and I got to admit, I think I might actually agree with the critics. I think the casting of the film is indeed wrong, and it starts with Mario. The sad fact of the matter is that this movie came out about 8 years too late for us to get the authentic Mario experience. This is the ideal Mario. You may not like it, but this is what peak performance looks like.
Yes.
Yep. Rip Bob Hoskins. I unironically like it. Like, you know. I mean, Who Framed Roger Rabbit is like the GOAT. That's like the great Bob Hoskins film. But him as Mario was like so terrible that it was like, all right, yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah. Moving on to some sports news. Everyone's talking about the U.S. men's national team's big win, 1-0 over Iran at the World Cup, which means they advance to the round of 16. The coverage has been electric. Take a look right here.
That's some coverage.
I mean, right? What is a kilometer anyway?
Yeah,
you know,
it's weird.
Yeah, that's stupid.
Sounds dumb.
And finally, this evening in international news, check this out: 4 Buddhist monks in Thailand have been shipped off to rehab after they all tested positive for methamphetamine. Check this out right here. The holy men, including the temple's abbot or head monk, failed the drug tests in the Phetchabun province's Bung Samphan district on Monday. Police forced the monks to undergo urine tests after they raided the temple as part of the province's crackdown on drugs. The monks, who haven't been named, have since been sent to a clinic to undergo drug rehabilitation. Damn! Today I learned that the Asian word for Tennessee is Thailand.
Oh.
Yeah.
Meth
Do
monks.
we even have laugh buttons anymore? Like, did we take them out, or do we still, you know?
I don't know. It just never occurs to me.
Yeah. Oh, it does
why.
it, does it? You son of a bitch.
I don't know why.
Before we go to the break, I do want to mention we're getting down to the end of the year here, and it's fundraising season here at It's Too Late. We sure could use your help in keeping the program going. Check out right here. If you want to support the show, you can actually just go to alanmosley.tv/support for several different ways to donate to the show, including Patreon, PayPal, Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash. And, you know, honestly, if you want to figure out another way to give us money, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
You know?
Make it happen.
Yeah. Like if you're sitting on a stockpile and you're like, God, I just wish Alan and Dave had this money. Well,
yeah. Right. I'm not even doing anything with this Sears card.
Yeah, right? If Sears, like if there's not a Sears in your town anymore, they can't demand payment. I looked it up. That's legal. If they closed your Sears, you don't have to pay them. Yep.
Oh.
All right. Anyway, guys, we're going to be back with the meme of the week and the viewer mail right after this commercial break. Don't go away. Yeah, hopefully. Right? Thank God. Look at us.
Look at us.
I was
didn't think so.
gonna open my fortune cookie, but I actually want to take a pause from that really quick. Oh my God, Dave! Guess where I ate yesterday?
Not Ponchos, right?
No, not Ponchos.
Okay. Oh, Olive Garden.
As if it's not. Anyway, I had Waffle House.
Oh, that's exciting.
The beautiful thing about going to Waffle House, particularly if you go to a Waffle House in like a somewhat more rural area, and particularly if you kind of go in the off hours, like not during the rush, you go in, they have like half the restaurant just blocked off because God knows there's only like 2 people working there, right? Because they can't get anyone to show up.
Yeah.
And so I go in and I sit down and I'm getting ready to have my hash browns and my waffle cake and whatever it is I'm eating. And there's this young lady sitting up at the front, and she's having a conversation with the waitress, who's another young lady. And you know how it's like you're not trying to eavesdrop, but
Oh, you can't help it.
But yeah, it's like Waffle House isn't that big, and they're kind of talking like this, like, oh yeah, they're talking like this, and it's like, well, now you're shoving your conversation into my life, you know. So now I'm listening. Now I'm invested. And the young lady behind on the other side of the bar, this young brunette, is telling the waitress, who turns out is only like 19 years old, that she had just gotten out of an abusive relationship.
Oh, that's wow.
And she goes on to tell her, yeah, he was really abusive. He actually broke my nose. And I thought, ooh. And then it just hit me like a pile of bricks. And I literally like went like to start to say something, and I stopped myself because I remembered
No, you're not in this one.
I'm not in this. But every fiber of my being wanted to say, oh my God, really? What did you say? And I literally went, oh my, and I stopped. Like they both kind of like look over, like, did I hear something? I stopped myself and I just shoved some hash browns in my fucking mouth. Because I remembered I don't know these people and they're probably not looking for, a joke.
That.
Yeah. But then if you think this is as bad as the story gets, the waitress who says in the conversation, I'm only 19, comma, and then here's some facts about my life. Mm-hmm. She says she also got out of an abusive relationship that she was in for 5 years.
Wow.
Now, if she was in this relationship for 5 years, then at a minimum, the relationship started when she was 14, and it was with a man.
That Waffle House is nuts.
And then I realized, oh my God, I can't decide now which one of these stories is worse. The chick that got beat up or the chick that was raped. Wow. And so anyway, that's what you can come to expect if you go to Waffle House. So there you go. We should have had a whole thing where, like, promo code it's too late for 10% off your order at Waffle House. Would have been great.
We need to do fake promos.
All right. My fortune today. Oh, take a look at this. The secret to happiness is gratitude. That's nice.
Wow.
Yeah. That must be why I'm just so angry all the time. I don't have enough gratitude, so we'll work on that. Anyway, hey Dave.
Yes, Alan.
What time is it?
It's time for meme of the week. Damn head game.
What the fuck is a Tuesday?
Tuesday.
What the is a Tuesday? These people. But we that was just one that was left over from the World Cup video I made, and I was like, what am I gonna do with this? It'll be meme of the week. Fuck it. But we do have a bonus meme. Check out the bonus meme. Jesus watching me ring up a PS5 as a banana at the self-checkout at Walmart. Oh, hell yeah. These are the sins I died for.
Oh,
You know, it's Christmas. It's going to be Christmas. We got to,
yeah.
we're going to have some holiday
fine with it.
themed. Oh, man. Did I mention in the monologue that we have a guest tonight? I mean, I guess I sort of did. Like, I implied that there is a guest, but I didn't specifically say, So anyway, we have a guest tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a guest tonight, which is Hunter DeRensis from Bring Our Troops Home and the Libertarian Institute. He's here tonight to talk about the Defend the Guard movement. And as soon as I saw it, I caught it in the corner of my eye on my notes. Hey, mention that we have a guest tonight. It just dawned on me. Ooh. Do you ever, Dave, tell me if you ever do this. Do you ever, like, take a step back and sort of just look at all we've done here on this show and think to yourself, how do we still get guests?
No, I don't do that, but it is a good question.
Yeah.
Solid question.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, before we do the viewer mail, let me tell you about tonight's sponsor, which is Pat Crisp Botanicals, which you can find at patcrispbotanicals.com. If you use promo code It's Too Late, all one word, It's Too Late, you get 30% off your order.
Gotta be kidding me.
30% off. I actually have one of their
30%.
products right here. This is the Blue Dream 2000. It's 1,000 milligrams CBD. It's got that Delta 8 in there. Puts you right to sleep. Now, Dave, Dave, hold on. Get the camera ready. I wrote a whole new ad copy for this because Michael told me he was a little bit concerned about our ads. I wrote him a new one.
Oh.
Are you ready? All right. Okay. Dave, now I know that you're a little bit fluid when it comes to consent. Well, how about some consent fluid? Put a little bit of the Blue Dream Delta 8 in her drink. Be right as rain.
Wow. I think he's gonna like that.
Yeah,
I think that's really nice.
Pat Crisp It's Pat Crisp Botanicals promo code. It's too late. You like that?
All
right.
Yeah, that was.
Boy,
really
it's all
up.
downhill from here. Hunter, I'm so sorry, buddy. Like now people are going to be asking. All right, let's answer some viewer mail. Look at Ryan. What was that website again? See, I'm making sales here, Making sales.
They might not like your tactic. But.
Speaking of Ryan Seifert writes, Dear Alan and Dave, after the Communist Revolution, what job will you be assigned? Dave, what job do you think you'll get after the revolution?
I saw this one pop up and I was thinking about it and I'm like, I'm pretty good at tech. I'm a hard worker. Like I'm good at, streamlining processes and being really productive and maybe some more complicated things like that. So I figured I'd be washing dishes or something like that.
Tonight,
So
notwithstanding, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, not counting the last 20 minutes, but God, I really hope it's late night talk show host. Because if it's not, actually, I mean, if I get a job after the revolution, that'll be more jobs than I have now. Damn, maybe I am a communist. All right. Gary Dockster writes, Dear Alan and Dave, what was the best or most memorable Christmas gift you received as a kid? Oh, that's nice. Dave, what was the most memorable Christmas gift you ever got as a kid?
Well, I don't have a whole lot of childhood memories, but I'm pretty sure that one of them is what's his name? Starscream. Is that the fighter jet from Transformers? I remember getting that. That was the coolest thing. I was so excited.
Oh,
but now that I think about it more, it might have been a recreated memory that might have never happened. But I feel like it did.
Mm-hmm. You wanted it. You want it to be correct.
Yeah, I think it would make my childhood seem nicer.
I was a big Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle kid.
Oh, yeah.
And one year I had everything. I had all the action figures and like the turtle van and everything. And one year,
van.
Yeah, I had the van. It has the little pizza shooter. Like the door flips out and dude's riding and shooting the pizzas. One year, they got me the turtle lair. Like it was this whole big thing. It was like the street, and underneath it there's the sewer, and there's like the room with the I got the turtle lair.
Wow, you must have been a good boy.
Yeah. That was I picked a lot of pockets that year. That was a good year. Yeah. Brian Johnson writes, Dear Alan and Dave, damn, he wrote 2 questions and I liked the first one more, and then he said, I don't like that one. Here's another one. Now, do I read the question that I liked more, or am I obligated to read the question that he preferred?
Oh, I read these. What was that? I don't want to put my influence on this. This is your decision.
You know what? I'm going to do the one I like because,
Damn it, that's the wrong one.
All right. Dear Alan and Dave, who was the worst boss or coworker you ever had, and why?
Oh, yeah.
Dave, got a memorable negative experience with a boss or coworker?
No one pops to mind. Like, I've always had good relationships with my boss because I got strong work ethics and stuff, so they're usually cool with me. Maybe like a worker that just really likes to talk. I can't handle that. Somebody pops into mind, but nobody's specific. It's just that type I don't like.
Yeah.
It's like, just do your job.
Yeah. So people that know me very well know that I actually owned and operated a printing company. Did that for 7 years, and I actually had a business partner. And for the first few years, he was the greatest coworker I ever had. Grew the business. Yeah, we're rolling in like $250,000 a year. And then after that, he became the worst coworker I ever had because he drained our bank account and left town. Yeah.
That would be memorable as a bad coworker.
Yeah, I remember it, Dave. Yeah. Anyway, you see what you did, Brian?
Yeah. I hope
Maybe
you're
the
happy.
other question was the right one. Oh, well.
I felt it.
It's too late now. Andrew Avery writes, Dear Alan and Dave, do you find whiteboards remarkable?
I
think
They're
he means
kind of cool.
I think he means dry erase. Because I've been
for me.
I've been to classrooms where like an instructor took a marker, like brought a marker from home and started writing on the board, but it wasn't a dry erase marker. And it's like, and you're the one in charge, huh, dipshit? It's like.
And then they use some kind of hard solvent to get it off.
Yeah.
Just
well, I mean, that's the best part. makes the room, get you in the holiday spirit. D3 writes, Dear Alan and Dad, what is your favorite dog breed? Dave, you have a favorite breed of dog?
Oh, man. I'd probably just have to say German Shepherds because I grew up with a lot of German Shepherds.
Oh, yeah.
A nice, big, solid dog, not too whiny, protect you. Yeah, good dog.
Yeah. Like, my family always had those miniature Dachshunds, like the little wiener dogs.
We had one of those.
Those are some good eating right there. And finally this evening, Mary Lynn Wilimowski writes, Dear Alan and Dave, if you could ask God, Jesus, Mary.
Man.
If you could ask God to answer one question right now, what would you want to know? Dave, you get to ask God one question. What is it?
I'd say, what am I doing right? Because I want to keep doing it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wait, hold on. Let me go over here.
Oh,
No, what we were looking for is this week's Powerball numbers. That's right.
Oh.
The answer was
think of that.
Yeah, you're dumb. Like
That would probably ruin me though.
You're gonna have like this whole big lovely Christmas with your family. I'm going to like Rome. I'm living the high life. I tell you what, like every single like Christmas movie and sitcom ever always tries to paint it as, oh no, the wrong answer was the Powerball because look at Dave's wonderful life and look how sad you're gonna be. That's fucking bullshit. I'm gonna be so happy. Like Right? Like, I feel like, okay, real talk for a second, because we're running out of time. We got to move on.
Yeah.
I feel like you know me pretty well at this point. Wouldn't you agree that if I had the winning Powerball numbers, I'd be pretty happy?
Yeah. You'd be happy.
Yeah.
I can see that. Well, they say like money doesn't buy happiness, but it sure gives you a lot of places to look
Yeah.
to find it.
Yeah, it buys all the things that makes you happy. Yeah. I mean, Anna Kay makes me happy, and I think she would want to make me even happier if I had $1 billion, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So anyway, correct answer was Powerball tickets.
Okay,
guys, we're going to be back with Hunter DeRensis to talk about Defend the Guard right after this commercial break. Don't go away. Your ad could be playing right now, reaching thousands of potential customers. Sadly, it's not, but it could be. Find out how to be an advertised sponsor for It's Too Late with Alan Mosley. Email us at info@alanmosley.tv. Welcome back to the show, everybody. Our guest this evening is the communications director for Bring Our Troops Home, an organization composed of veterans of the global war on terror and their civilian allies who are dedicated to ending American involvement in the endless wars in the Middle East, as well as an editor of the Libertarian Institute. We've had many members of the Libertarian Institute on the show in the past. Hunter, it's your turn. I'm sorry. He also co-hosts the Good Boys Variety Hour, which talks about a bunch of weird shit about once a month. Hunter DeRensis, welcome to the show.
Hi, Alan. So happy to be here tonight. Thank you for having me.
Well, we're glad to have you here. Now, Hunter, I told you before we got started today that I've never talked about Defend the Guard legislation around the country on this show before. And I asked around to some of our friends and said, hey, who would be somebody good to have on the show to talk about Defend the Guard? And a number of people tattled on you. They said, why don't you talk to Hunter DeRensis? So, Hunter, I want you to address our audience as if they've never heard about it before, and maybe some of them never have. What is Defend the Guard?
So Defend the Guard is a novel way to sort of decentralize U.S. foreign policy. What it is a state-based bill which, if passed by a state legislature, would prohibit the deployment of that state's National Guard into active combat without a formal declaration of war as required by Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution. So in that way, the states could withhold their Guard units unless Congress declares war and follows the constitutionally prescribed process to going to war. It's not talked about often, but the National Guard of our country forms the backbone of the U.S. military. Almost half of the soldiers deployed during the global war on terror were National Guardsmen. Over 18% of the casualties of the global war on terror were National Guardsmen. And if the states were able to withhold consent and withhold their guard from being used by the federal government for these illegal wars, it would simply be impossible for the empire based in D.C. to wage these endless wars in the Middle East and elsewhere. So it's really a way for the states to require the federal government to follow what is already federal law, it's what I think is really brilliant about this, because it's taking the decision out of D.C. and putting it in state legislatures with local activists, local politicians, and saying you have the decision to make over whether your guardsmen go to war, unless D.C. wants to follow the law and actually do it. So either we end up that Congress actually has to take accountability for itself and put its name on the dotted line before our troops put their boots on the ground, or we have to, in the name of the organization, we have to bring our troops home. And that's sort of the end goal of all of this.
Now, I want to back up a little bit, because you use the phrase illegal wars and Congress putting their putting their stamp on the dotted line. I want you to explain that for the audience a little bit, because I'm sure there's some people out there that if they've never heard of any of this before in their lives, they're saying, "Well, wait a minute! I thought that there was the global war on terror. We declared war on terrorism, and there was the AUMF, and we're going into the Middle East to stop Islamic terror. How is that an illegal war?"
Yes, that's one of the debates that's currently going on in D.C., where some Beltway organizations are trying to get at least a basic repeal of the AUMF without even a full condemnation of its legality. Bring Our Troops Home does stand opposed to authorizations for use of military force, which don't actually declare war as prescribed by the Constitution. The Constitution says in Article 1, Section 8, that the Congress has the singular power to declare war, to go from a state of peace to a state of war against another country or organization and such. What the AUMF does is it's Congress taking a vote to give the decision-making power to the president and saying, we're allowing the president to make the decision on whether or not to go to war. Even after the 2002 AUMF against Iraq, it was still open, theoretically open, the question of whether George W. Bush would choose to invade Iraq. It was Congress allegedly giving him permission. And we completely reject that idea. It's completely unconstitutional for a branch of government to attempt to give one of its spelled out constitutional powers to another branch without a constitutional amendment. So we reject the entire premise of the AUMF as completely illegal. And the fact that it is completely open-ended, that it does not contain anything any restrictions related to geography or finances or anything else. It's just an open-ended check to the president for endless unilateral war. And we believe that's a complete rejection of the ideas of the founding fathers and the ideas of the old republic, which our country was based.
Now, because this sounds like a sort of a modern concept, that with the AUMF and the president sort of unilaterally deciding on war powers. So I sort of a two-parter question here, just for the history students out there. What was the last time that the United States did legally declare war on someone, and how does where does Defend the Guard sort of come? What is the beginning of the evolution? When does the Defend the Guard movement appear in the national consciousness?
So the last time the United States Congress formally declared war was in 1942 against a couple of the extra access powers like Romania. And more famously, people remember the declaration of war a year before that against Japan following Pearl Harbor. Since then, we've relied only on AUMFs, or not even that, in cases like the current U.S. occupation of Syria or Harry Truman's war in Korea. Congress didn't even have an AUMF. They didn't vote on anything. The president just did it with zero authority, and Congress, the legislature, never chose to hold them accountable. And as for the history of the bill, there are several iterations in the past. In the 1950s, you have some governors declaring that they'll withhold their National Guard. You had a movement similar in the 80s. The modern bill that's currently in use and that we use, a prototype was first put forward by the 10th Amendment Center, I think a little over a decade ago. But we really put the start of our specific movement with the introduction of the bill in West Virginia by Delegate Pat McGeehan starting in 2015. Pat is a great guy. He's a veteran of the U.S. Air Force. And every single year, starting in 2015, he began introducing the Defend the Guard bill. He, I believe, took the 10th Amendment's version, Center's version, made it better, specialized it, and year after year introduced it, sometimes being the only vote and the only supporter, the only time the bill's being introduced in the whole country. But he did this repeatedly until our organization adopted it as our cornerstone project beginning in 2020. And in the past 3 years, we've worked to get Defend the Guard introduced in over 20 states. And we've already begun pre-filing for the 2023 legislative session, and we'll be adding even more states to the roster, such as North Carolina, Georgia, Pennsylvania. So every year we're growing with this bill.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned the 10th Amendment Center, Hunter, because TAC did a special recently on Defend the Guard with our friend Michael Bolden saying, quote, amazing that Defend the Guard after all these years is a lead focus in much of the liberty movement. So what do you think it is about Defend the Guard that has made it so well received and perhaps generated more enthusiasm than some of the more radical ideas that are out there around the liberty community?
I think it's because foreign policy often takes such a focus in our movement. I think if you ask most libertarians, they would say the worst crime the state commits is war. That the wars in the Middle East, the invasions of Iraq, Afghanistan, our potential to enter a World War III with Russia over Ukraine, that these are the biggest issues facing our country, or you could say the human population, and that, there are much bigger problems than the, state of the DMV. But even though libertarians think that this is the most important issue, they don't really have a lot of solutions on how to deal with it. You could say, like, oh, well, if we elect enough people in Washington, D.C., if we get Congress to break a 70-year tradition and actually declare war, if we get Congress to actually care about following the law or care about stopping these wars and not being completely bought off by the military-industrial complex, well, then we could accomplish something. So what I think Defend the Guard does, and why people have gotten so excited about it since Bring Our Troops Home adopted it, is that this is a way for libertarians to have actual constructive change. It's a lot easier to get a bill introduced and passed in a state legislature than in Congress. It's a lot easier to speak to local legislators who you as a constituent are much closer to than people in Washington, D.C. You might see them at the grocery store or the post office. You might have gone to school with them. It's much easier to convince them that they have a civic duty to protect our soldiers and the integrity of our National Guard. And it's much easier to convince them in part because they're not as corrupt as people in D.C. Lockheed Martin and Raytheon aren't spending tens of millions of dollars to buy off, state legislators in Arizona or Kentucky or Idaho. So it's much easier to get local legislators on board than trying to, flip U.S. Senate seats or change the House of Representatives, where these companies and these weapons contractors are spending endless amounts of money to make sure that they stay in their pocket. And the position of Bring Our Troops Home is that no positive change is going to take place in Washington, D.C. There's a lot of organizations there, good-hearted ones that we're friendly with, who, are trying to do important work, but after so many years, they can't even get the 1991 AUMF against Iraq from the first Gulf War repealed. Or, it's a dead letter. It's not even, currently being invoked, but they can't get it repealed because you're not getting that change on Capitol Hill. Whereas in only 3 years, we've gotten Defend the Guard introduced in over 20 states. We've gotten half a dozen committee hearings, and we're planning to have floor votes in 2023. So with a fraction of the budget, a fraction of the manpower, we're getting these things done. And I think libertarians see that example and get excited about it, because who wouldn't want to when we're trying to decentralize everything else, who wouldn't want to try to decentralize U.S. foreign policy?
Well, let's expound upon that a little bit, because I think that most people would agree that it's definitely easier to get things done at a state level as opposed to the national level. So let's talk a little bit about the successes then. In the last 5-10 years or so, where has Defend the Guard made the biggest strides?
The biggest strides currently going into 2023, we're most excited in particular about Arizona, Kentucky, Wyoming, and Idaho. We have a great slate of bill sponsors there, and I encourage everyone listening to check out defendtheguard.us. That's the website for Defend the Guard. You can look up your own state, see if there's a bill introduced, see who's sponsoring it, look at the bill number, see Q&A, regularly asked questions, get a little information on the bill, any news pieces, any background information you can find there. So I encourage people to use that as a resource. And I think what's most exciting about, or at least some past victories, we had, just as the Russian invasion of Ukraine began in February, that same week we had a resolution version of the bill pass in South Dakota. And of course, it was then, stomped in the Senate before it could pass. But it did pass in the House, and there were some great speeches given by our primary bill sponsor, Aaron Elward, and another fellow legislator who was a veteran of the Vietnam War, and he gave an excellent and very emotional speech about his experiences in war and why he supported this bill as a veteran. Similarly, Pat McGeehan, who I mentioned earlier, he's gotten floor votes in West Virginia. I believe the floor vote in 2020 only failed by a single vote. And he gave in a very impassioned speech last year about the bill as its closing monologue, which people can find on our YouTube channel and our Sovereign channel. And of course on defendtheguard.us. Personally, I consider it one of the best speeches given in American history, so I encourage people to look that up. And it's just those sort of things of going around speaking at these committee hearings, primarily done by my boss and, of course, the founder of Bring Our Troops Home, Sergeant Dan McKnight, a veteran of the war in Afghanistan and the go-to Defend the Guard guy. And being able to have Dan to speak to people, speak to legislators, change minds, change hearts, and every year get this bill further and further to getting passed and closer to bringing our troops home.
Well, then let's talk a little bit about the flip side of that. So what are the biggest challenges, obstacles that Defend the Guard and its supporters face, and what is the opposition saying and doing in response to Defend the Guard? What is their argument against this legislation?
So we get two primary criticisms of the bill. The first is saying that it's unconstitutional, which we completely reject. People like to point out Supreme Court decision back in 1990, Perpich versus Department of Defense. And that was when the governor of Minnesota, Rudy Perpich, attempted to withhold the Minnesota National Guard from training exercises being done by the Reagan administration in Central America. And the Supreme Court declared unanimously that states do not have that authority. But the decision was extremely explicit in no uncertain terms that states could not withhold the Guard for training missions. It gave no indication whatsoever about active combat because that's explicitly spelled out by Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution. And that's what Defend the Guard is in reference to. Of course, the Guard can be sent for training missions abroad, but not into active combat without a declaration of war. And some people try to argue that it's a nullifying bill and that because it's with nullification, it's illegal. I disagree with that interpretation. I know even supporters, I believe even Michael Bolden sometimes refers to this as a nullification bill. I disagree with that because the whole purpose of the bill is to obligate Congress and the federal government to follow what is already federal law. We're appealing to the Supremacy Clause because there's no higher law than the Constitution, and Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution mandates a declaration of war. So I don't interpret it as a nullifying bill. But the primary criticism we get is with funding. In most states, over 90% of the National Guard funding comes from the federal government. And the worry by local legislators that if they were to pass this bill and withhold the National Guard from some unconstitutional war abroad, that the federal government would defund the National Guard. And we've even gotten those threats, but we believe that it is a completely empty threat. That would not happen. Alan, what state do you reside in?
Tennessee.
Tennessee. So who are your senators from Tennessee?
Oh, God, I don't know. I haven't kept up in about 30 years.
All right. Well, yeah, I know there was that one woman who's terrible on foreign policy from your state. Real hawk, really not smart.
You talking about Marsha Blackburn?
Yes, Blackburn.
Yeah.
Thank you. I guarantee Blackburn would hate Defend the Guard. She would not support this bill. But if it passed, do you think Marsha Blackburn would ever allow the federal government to defund the Tennessee National Guard to try to take units, equipment out of her state to close bases? It would never happen. And no U.S. senator, or representative, no matter how hostile to this bill, would allow that to happen. With one exception, we got I believe it was either last year or the year before, we got some great progress in the Wyoming State House. We had over 20 co-sponsors to this bill. So what happened is that the adjutant general of the state, who is placed by the National Guard Bureau located in D.C., put in charge of the Wyoming National Guard. He took the legislators, the bill sponsors, on a tour of the bases and basically did the threat, backed up by Liz Cheney herself, that if you don't drop this bill, we will take every gun, every vehicle, every piece of equipment, every bullet shell out of this state. We will relocate units. We will shutter bases. And this was a personal promise by Liz Cheney herself, who, of course, would do this because, one, she's a Virginian, so why would she care about the people of Wyoming? And two, she's pure evil, so she doesn't need any other incentive to hurt people. So besides that exception, no politician with a realistic chance of re-election would ever allow their National Guard to be defunded. So we think it's an empty threat by the federal government to try to keep the bill from passing. And the fact that when we do get the bill introduced and do get it to these committee hearings, that you have adjutant generals showing up, you have people from the Pentagon flying in to testify against the bill because they say it's a threat to our war stature in the Middle East and elsewhere. That's how you know the bill is effective, that the Pentagon is terrified of this, and they actually put in the work to try to stop us and try to prevent veterans from testifying in favor of the bill. And I can proudly say that in all the states we've had it introduced, in all of the places where it's gotten a committee vote or a committee hearing, not a single soul has ever testified against Defend the Guard who wasn't being paid by the government to be there. Not a one.
Wow. I just want to mention really quickly, because I almost never talk about Tennessee politics specifically on this show. And there's two reasons for that. One being is that I just try to make it more of a general audience friendly show as opposed to just Tennessee. But two, Tennessee's awful. I love the state of Tennessee, and I think everyone should move to the state of Tennessee as opposed to some cold, frigid state in the Northeast to try to make it better. But politicians from Tennessee are just abysmal. Marsha Blackburn, I could have gone this entire interview without you bringing up that woman. I did want to mention really quick, Bill Haggerty is our other senator, and he's on the Foreign Relations Committee. So Tennessee's not the best, all right, when it comes to our representatives and our senators.
I will say we're still looking for a bill sponsor for Defend the Guard in Tennessee. So if there are any Liberty legislators who listen to this, or anybody listening does know somebody, we're on the search.
Well, there you go. That's good to know. A couple of other things on Defend the Guard before we move on. Mm-hmm. So it's had its ups and downs. It's a movement that's definitely grown over the years. But this is sort of kind of a curveball for you to get your thoughts on. Do you think that the Defend the Guard movement as a whole grows or shrinks as more turmoil is potentially on the horizon in American foreign policy?
I think it certainly grows, and that sort of goes with any political issue. Any issue that you focus on and say that this is a problem, the more it's in the public focus, the more attention the issue is going to get, and the more you'll be able to see success with trying to make it better. So when certainly, like I said, when we Bring Your Troops Home adopted the bill in 2020, we did that just a few months prior to when COVID-19 became the global pandemic and absorbed all the oxygen in the room. So we were only able to introduce it in, I believe, 4 or 5 states that first year. We had a lot of other legislators and states lined up to introduce it, but the moment all the lockdowns started happening, everybody's attention was driven away. But then this year, as soon as you have the Russian invasion of Ukraine and you have foreign policy and the lack of wisdom in D.C. and the terrible management by the Biden administration, when you have that playing 24 hours a day on cable news, and this is an issue that more people are paying attention to, and where we're able to say, hey, look at what the neocons are trying to do. They're trying to get us into World War III. We're giving tens of billions of dollars in aid to Ukraine. We're trying to nation build in Eastern Europe. We're doing this recklessly. We shouldn't even be NATO. This gives us a lot more ammunition and a lot more targets to fire at, which is beneficial to the cause of Defend the Guard, because even when you don't have this in the news, it's still a major issue. I don't think anyone in cable news was particularly talking about Afghanistan for the last decade of the war. Between 2013 and the eventual withdrawal. It's not talked about right now, but we still have 2,500 troops in Iraq. We have over 1,000 in Syria. We have God knows how many patrolling dirty wars in Africa, and we don't know how many because the Pentagon won't tell us. These are all active issues, but they're not getting the kind of attention they should. So when the government does mess up enough, as it often does, to bring this into the public forefront, I do think it is definitely beneficial to the movement because it just makes people focus on an issue that's happening all the time, whether they notice it or not.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned how the pandemic era sort of sucked all the oxygen out of the room. Is that and I think you know where I'm going with this. What I'm always afraid of, Hunter, is take Afghanistan for example. There was a lot of polls that were going around that were demonstrating how much the public had really checked out on Afghanistan. As you mentioned, it wasn't really getting coverage for years at that point. But the public as a whole had sort of moved on from it as an issue. And when the idea of an Afghanistan withdrawal came up, it was pretty well received across most political spectrums. Let's get out of Afghanistan. It's been long enough. What I'm always afraid of, because I tell this story all the time. You know, I was in high school when 9/11 happened, which means I would have been a younger kid, you know, during the first go round in Iraq. And you see those videos of the night vision, tracers going through the sky and missiles hitting buildings, and everyone says, "Ooh, rah, USA, USA, we're going to get the bad guys." And it seems like, and I'm not trying to sound conspiratorial in nature when I say this. I'm trying my best not to sound like a crazy person, but it seems like whenever there's enough impetus to get some type of actionable change on an issue like this, there'll be some new disaster or emergency or threat, in this case in foreign policy, and all of a sudden it seems like it's so easy to whip the public back up into that fervor of, oh, we're in danger, this must be addressed, and all of a sudden things like this go to the wayside. So I don't know if this is so much a question as it's just me voicing my concern that I'm always afraid that whenever someone like yourself or whenever a movement like this gets to a certain point of moving the needle, there's always that next emergency. And that's why I'm afraid that it, you know, on the one hand you think, well, if there's trouble on the horizon, people don't want to go to war, so they would want something like this to pass. On the other hand, the public at large, they love war, don't they? Do Americans love war or do they not? That's a tough question.
I think it is a tough question, and it is, I suppose, a little open-ended to answer, but in my opinion, I would say that we can't really know the answer because the American people have never really been asked. We see so much propaganda by the corporate press to try to convince people to get into these wars. We have zero accountability when it comes to their representatives actually voting for war. It doesn't happen. So the fact that the people, I believe, are so purposely shut out by the system to either be brainwashed or silenced, I think gives a good indication of where the war party in DC thinks the people are. And I think it's a good indication to say that when we do get closer to the people in state legislators and through their local representatives, we see more success in DC. I think that also gives us an answer. I think when people are presented the facts and presented the situation, that they say, I don't want my son or daughter fighting an endless war in the Middle East to nation build in Afghanistan, to overthrow a dictator I've never heard of, or try to bring freedom, quote unquote, to some far off place when the government is also currently trying to get me out of my job if I'm not vaccinated, or is raising my taxes, or I can't even afford upcoming Christmas dinner because of inflation. I think there's a lot more concerns the American people have than trying to reconstruct the world based on the vision of some insane elites based in Washington, D.C. And I take comfort in knowing that.
Hunter, where can people go to support you and find out more about Defend the Guard?
So I would say you could follow me on Twitter if you want some what I think are some pretty good tweets. I just surpassed 1,000 followers. Thank you, Elon Musk. You can follow me on Twitter at Hunter DeRensis, just my name. If you want to learn more about Defend the Guard, I encourage you to go to, again, defendtheguard.us for all of the resources based on that. And if you want more information about Bring Our Troops Home, or if you want to support the Defend the Guard movement, then go to bringourtroopshome.us. You can see the donate tab and give some money, because that's the thing about nonprofits. If you don't contribute, nothing gets done. We are Bring Our Troops Home, the only organization which is actively working to pass Defend the Guard and state legislators. We're the only people actually partnering with legislators to get the bill introduced. And we need more funds for 2023 to get this done. We can only go so far as our supporters allow us. So I encourage everyone, go give $10 a month, give a one-time $25 donation, whatever you can spare. It's worth it, and it does help. Again, that's bringourtroopshome.us. Go to the donate tab and follow from there. I can't recommend it enough.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned that. Before I forget, I know it's fundraising season. Make sure to remind everybody where they can also go to support the Libertarian Institute.
Yes, the great Libertarian Institute project by the wonderful Scott Horton, my other boss. I wear many hats in this life. You can go to libertarianinstitute.org/donate. It is our winter fundraiser, so you can go there, give a couple dollars. Scott has great rewards. If you give certain amounts, you can get free copies of his book, signed copies. You can get merchandise, shirts, all kinds of great stuff. The Libertarian Institute is the next generation of libertarian writers and speakers in our movement. As you said earlier, you've had many of them on your show. So if any of your listeners have heard them and been fans of them, go to the Institute, throw in some money. And like I said, these nonprofits don't work unless you help us. And I encourage you to give to them, especially the ones that employ me. Please, God, give them more money. They need it.
Amen, brother. Okay, we got one more question, and we're going to go to the commercial break. Hunter, are you ready for the bonus round?
Hit me.
Is a fruitcake a cake or a bread?
God, I've never made a fruit cake, and it's never actually. I really wish you had just asked me the hot dog question. I've never considered fruit cake.
We are years beyond the hot dog question.
I know, it had to be so damn seasonal. I kind of just have to go on the context of the question. I want to say it's definitely more like a bread, because you're not trying to bake all of that fruit into a cake, because often it would just sink to the bottom. No, I'm going to go with bread. It's more like a bread.
All right. Your final answer is a fruitcake is a bread.
Yes. Yes. Clock in, or whatever.
Oh, I'm sorry, Hunter. You hate to see it. Hunter, let me read it for you. First of all, a fruitcake is what they call a quick bread. But before you get too excited, breads are leavened with yeast and are often not too sweet. Quick breads, on the other hand, are chemically leavened and often very sweet. In fact, according to culinary definitions, fruitcake is a cake. So that was for $50,000 for the Libertarian Institute. You hate to see it. We'll try again next year. Hunter, thanks for being on the show, buddy.
I reject that result. I do not concede, and I demand a recount.
All right, stop the count. Stop the count. We'll be back to check on it, guys. We'll be back to wrap up the show right after this. Don't go away. If you're enjoying tonight's show, consider supporting the program by becoming a member of our Patreon. That's over at patreon.com/Alan Mosley. Like our Facebook page. It's facebook.com/Alan Mosley TV. You can follow me on Twitter. It's twitter.com/Alan Mosley TV. Subscribe to our YouTube page. It's youtube.com/Alan Mosley TV. Most of those oh my god, Dave, where's the buttons? Dave, where's the buttons? You gotta have the Odyssey. And there's it's the free speech. Odyssey's one of the only platforms we're even on tonight because YouTube's down, Twitch is down. They'll all be back tomorrow, but they're down right now. So you can get us on Odyssey. You can listen to the podcast version of the show after the show on Apple, Google, Spotify, wherever, thanks to Anchor, which is anchor.fm/Alan Mosley TV. Dave, do you have a final thought?
Well, that went pretty well. Be excited about that. After the beginning, it went relatively well. That was a great interview. It's cool that Hunter came on. He's a really bright dude. That was a good conversation. This was fun.
Yeah. Ryan says Dave was doing whippets. So Ryan got banned during the show, and we'll have to. Ryan, stick around. We're gonna have a quick after party, and we want you to fill everyone in on why you switched from Ryan to Brian during the interview portion of tonight's show. I hope everyone enjoyed it. I hope everyone enjoyed listening to Hunter and talk about Defend the Guard. Want to say again really quick, please, it's fundraising season. Dig deep, ladies and gentlemen. It's Christmas, and what better way to celebrate the holiday than to give money to a guy on the internet who gets banned from YouTube for calling people fat. And he may or may not have the express written consent of the NFL, but by God, he's just better than Troy Aikman and Joe Buck, you know?
Yeah.
I mean,
it'd be a sin to not give this to the world.
Yeah, well, our meme of the week. We know a thing or two.
Yeah.
Guys, thanks so much for listening to another episode of It's Too Late. And we will see you next week. I guess we should probably just leave it running on the platforms that we're on, because
Might as well.
I can't.
What else are you gonna do? Can you...
The Twitch is actually set to be unbanned in like 45 minutes, but we don't have time, you know.
Oh really? Yeah.
You know what? I saw Celeste say quick bread in the chat. Celeste knows that fruitcake is a quick bread, but a quick bread is a cake. So it's very deceptive. Celeste would have got it right, though. She would have won the bonus round.